have time to introduce themselves then, I think.
Cool. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. Alice Gwynn and I started working with the Recruitment and Retention Work Group back in 2018. And it was comprised of IUPA staff and contractors and other outside groups like Jobs with Justice. And we were looking to find solutions to better recruit and retain members into our trades. And we came to Jobs with Justice to help us put together the two programs actually, and the one that they're going to be presenting today is the community engagement training. We had this training planned for earlier in 2020 in person in Hanover, and of course everybody knows what happened in 2020. So they've been great about trying to put this on Zoom for us and get the program going. And we're looking forward to the engagement, and it's all about sharing best practices and using them across the international. So please be engaged. And I will hand it over to Joe Thomas and Martha Valadez.
Thanks so much, Simon. And we'll do a full round of introductions in a minute, but kind of before we pop up the slideshow and stuff, I wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is Joe Thomas. I work for the National Office of Jobs with Justice. I have as many of us probably do, I have a job title that's not terribly informative, but what I actually do for work is I coordinate a lot of our leadership and organizing training and development programs. So when Aaron from our research department, who's on, came to me with this opportunity to work with the IUPAT and the Finishing Trades Institute, I was really excited because I do a lot of organizing training, but don't do have not had as many opportunities to do training with, union staff especially on the building trade side, where recruitment and retention is not just about sort of, organizing as, campaign or issue organizing, but is also about, the day-to-day work of actually building the union and serving members. I am based in St. Louis, Missouri. So that's also sort of my local background is in a fairly union dense place. For the building trades especially have pretty good coverage here, pretty good density in their sectors. So there might be times where I'm taking that as an assumption. So please feel free to speak up and check in. Also, just in general, like Zoom is sometimes a little bit of a funky way to interact. So feel free to just drop something in the chat if you just have hey, I have a question, could you repeat that or whatever. It's often the easiest way for me or one of the other facilitators to catch that you've got something, because in person it's a lot easier to catch people's body language and realize if somebody's got something they want to add or anything. So that's me. And Marta, if you could introduce yourself, and then after that, Aaron will jump into the slideshow where we've got a setup for a full round of introductions after that.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Marta Valadez. My pronouns are she, they. I'm based here in so-called El Paso, Texas. I'm originally from San Bernardino, California, but I've been here for 3 years now. I started working with National Jobs with Justice in June. I'm an national organizer with National Jobs with Justice. And prior to that, I was an electrician apprentice here with Local 583 for 2 years. My background has always been in organizing. I got a master's in social work, and just transitioning and shifts. I'll share more when we go into the presentation, but just transition shifts brought me to the trades, and I come from a union family and a construction worker household, and so I just have a base in organizing and community organizing, and also working in the trade union. So I'm really excited to be here with y'all and look forward to it. My background is in organizing, but when you're an organizer, you do a little bit of everything. So training is also in my toolkit. So I'm really excited to be invited with you all and to be helping to kind of do the first run of this training that Joe and Aaron have really put together. Any feedback you have, any input, super appreciated. And Yeah, I just look forward to getting to know you all through this training and working with y'all virtually. So yeah, looking forward to the program today.
Thanks so much. And Aaron, if you can share your screen and start the slideshow, and I'll give you cues as we move along. All right. All right. So welcome again to community engagement training. If you could just go ahead and go to the second one there. Thanks, Aaron. So this will be in 3 parts. These should, if we got the timing right, they should be about an hour each. So we've also got time for breaks in between, since no one wants to sit at their Zoom for 3 hours straight, myself included. So this first part is going to be kind of an overview, also doing some of the statistics on sort of why there's IUPAT feels the need to focus so much on recruitment and retention of diverse apprentices, and then go into some of the stories of both for ourselves in this room, but also from members in the building trades of what paths into the building trades look like, because we actually want to start with members' experiences to really inform what we do. The next slide, please. Yeah, so if we could just do introductions. To start, if you could just actually, it might be easy to drop it in the Zoom chat. Just what your name and your role is, if you're an organizer, director of training, whatever your role is within your district, or whatever level of the union you're at, and then your trade. I know that folks may come from any of the several trades that IUPAT covers, and just like your district council and location. And then just how long you've been in the union, from whenever you first walked in the door to now. Welcome, Antoinette. Welcome, welcome. All right, so it looks like we've got a mix of how long folks have been on, and both national staff and local. Thanks so much, y'all. And we'll have a little more time later in the session to get more into kind of our stories of how we got into the union. But I can see already from the range of folks here that we're going to have a good mix of different experiences of how folks got into the union and how we also got active. If you could go to the next slide, Aaron. And then, so actually go back one. So this will be not the quiz, the poll. So Nicole, could you just hit go on that first Zoom poll? So we've got a little, call it a quiz, call it a poll, a temperature check, whatever you want to call it. There's some basics on like where IUPAT is currently at in terms of what percentage of IUPAT's membership are women, what percentage is over 55, nearing retirement age, and some other basics on kind of both where IUPAT is at and where our industry is at. Do folks all see that poll? It's something that pops up differently for those of us who are facilitating than for participants. So make sure people can.
Yeah, if you guys can see it, you can go ahead and start it. There we go.
Yeah, just spend a second.
Questions. That sounds good.
Spend a second filling it in, and then this is the quiz that Mike knew that he wasn't going to be prepared for either way. So.
It's not on my screen.
Yeah,
Who said that?
Who's missing it?
Mike Anderson.
All right, Mike, let me see what I can do.
Thank you, Nicole.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I see something, but I can't click on it. I had to log in from my phone.
Oh yeah, it might not work as well on phones. Actually, personally, I'm always on Zoom on my computer.
Yeah, because my PC and the laptop I couldn't log in with. I'm going to keep trying. And if I get on here, I'll hop off of this.
Appreciate you trying to make it work though. I know that, you know, we're often just kind of doing workarounds and stuff these days. I'll go ahead and close this out. We got a fair number of people were able to use it, most of us, I think.
When I hit submit on mine, I don't know if it went through or not.
It looks like it did. We got 8 out of the 12 participants answered. I'm not sure if it's going to let me share the results or not, but Aaron, I don't remember where I put it on this, but you should be able to reveal the results if you click kind of on the top part of that.
We can see them, or at least I can see them. I hope everyone else can.
Yes.
So yeah, we wanted to do just kind of the temperature check because, you know, this isn't data that, you know, we got all this data from IUPAT, of course, for your all's own membership. But the moment women are about 6.5%, 7% of IUPAT's membership, and around a third of IUPAT's membership is over 55, nearing retirement age. And then actually we'll have some of the other answers as we go through the slides. About 3 out of 10 tradeswomen report having experienced harassment on the job. In Canada, I'm not sure, I don't know where all the DC District Council numbers go to, but I'm still not sure how many Canadian folks we might have on here. But in Canada, Indigenous folks are the fastest growing portion of the Canadian population. Then for that last question, it's going to be about 10 years before the majority of working age folks in the US, like 25 to 55 year old folks in the US are people of color. And it's even sooner if you're talking about folks who are younger and you know, kind of in the age that we're recruiting apprentices for. So we're going to start with some of these, and Aaron, if you go to the next slide, please. You know, part of the reason that IUPAT is focusing on needing to recruit younger members and also more diverse members. So first off, there's a lot of members that are going to be retiring relatively soon. It varies a bit by region, but not hugely. You know, generally it's even in the sort of youngest region is the Western United States, and that's still more than 1 out of 5 folks members are approaching retirement age. In other places, it's a little closer to a quarter. This is probably not news to any of you. You know, you see your members all the time, like you know this. Go to the next slide, please. Women in the trades in general are about 3.5%, 4% in Canada of construction trades occupations overall, not IUPAT specific, but just over the industry as a whole. And of course, this is recruitment and retention. So when we talk about 3 in 10 tradeswomen have reported experiencing harassment on the work site, and 1 in 10 severe enough to file a federal complaint. As with most things, you know, our system, the EEOC and other systems to protect workers are not very good. So like the level of harassment that like qualifies for a federal complaint is well past, you know, it's well past the threshold for unacceptable, and it's into like legal is a whole nother threshold of pretty severe harassment. And so obviously this is like important, not just for retaining women, but also just to like creating work sites where everyone feels welcome, comfortable, able to treat one another with respect, which is important for union members feeling good about being a part of their union. whether women or not. Next slide. And I'm going to run through these because the specific numbers aren't always the, whether it's 18 or 20% or whatever isn't necessarily the point, but more to get kind of the overall picture. So in the United States in particular, the construction sector has a long history overall of racial discrimination. We've come a long way from like where it was, there was a point where there were white only locals or very white dominated union locals. But there certainly are still some pretty stark differences in the sector overall. People of color in the US are about 1 in 5 of the construction workforce overall, but they're also less likely to be in the more high pay trades occupations. Similarly, Latinx construction workers are a pretty big sector of the construction workforce in the US overall, but they're more likely to be at non-union, more dangerous job sites. They're more likely to be killed on the job or injured on the job than other construction workers. And this is mostly about them working on non-union sites, more likely, and in more dangerous conditions. So even though, it's one of the things where, we want diversity in good jobs, not just being able to get any job because we're a union. That's the point, right? If you head to the next slide, we got Canadian numbers as well. New Canadians, relatively new immigrants, are a big part of the construction workforce in Canada. As in the United States, although in Canada, the where country of origin is a lot more varied. And then Indigenous Canadians are the biggest growing section of the Canadian population, but they're only about 5% of the total construction workforce. And next slide, please. And gender diversity in IUPAT specifically varies a bit more than the age by region. So, in the much of the United States, it's a little under 5%. The Eastern region is close to 10%. Canada is also a little under 5%. This varies a lot by primary trade. I think you'll probably know better than I do, but drywall, glazers, painters are the biggest sections just by overall membership. You can see there is some definite difference there. So it's obvious. I assume this from when we've been talking to folks around both the US and Canada, stuff varies a lot from one district council to another. But I would assume that you all know or can find out within your own district council if there's one trade or another that's doing better or falling behind more. I also want to just, one thing I do want to note is that, women right now, or as we pulled these stats, we're about 6.5% of IUPAT members, and only a little bit better for apprentices, which also means that this is not just about, we're doing well now, but we didn't used to be. This is actually like an ongoing thing that will require more work in order to, because the apprenticeship numbers are the first place that we'll see that we're doing well, is the tick up there before obviously the whole membership starts to shift. If you go next slide, please, Aaron. Thank you. Doing gender, just in general, IUPAT is struggling more with gender diversity and getting women into the trades than on race and ethnicity. The one thing you can see from this, this is, overall IUPAT membership is not broken down by region. And here you see a pretty substantial Latinx representation. That does, vary by regions, like the Western region in the United States, somewhat unsurprisingly has a higher percentage of Latinx members. The Eastern region has a higher percentage of Black members. The one thing that I'd flag about this slide, we put it together with the best data that IUPAT has, but there's about a third, or maybe not quite a third, of the current membership, not including retirees, where IUPAT doesn't have race or ethnic just demographic information. And so we're not real sure how accurate this snapshot is. You know, if I don't know what IUPAT's all their internal stuff is for membership demographic tracking, but the locals and JATCs, you know, can't fix a problem that if you can't describe it. So getting better information in some cases might be a good first step. If you could go one more slide then. So like I said, I ran through all that because I wanted to give kind of the overview of where the union is at in terms of numbers and the construction sector overall. But of course, like no one here, you know, we don't recruit or train or organize statistics. We recruit and organize and train people. So we're going to spend most of this section, most of the time in this first part until 2 Eastern, 1 Central, and so on. Actually going into discussing both different members' experiences of like our own, some of the folks on the call here, as well as some that we got when we were talking to, you know, when we're setting this training up and designing it, we talked a fair amount to a number of members from around the country of both IUPAT and a couple of other building trades about what the actual experience of getting into the trade was, you know, how people got recruited, how people first found out about the trade, and then also like their experience in the union and the experience of to becoming, like what the path is to become a good union member. Because I think we all know that like the difference between someone who pays their dues and goes to the job site and then never does anything else with the union and someone who's an active union member can be huge for like just the health and vitality of our locals and district councils. So also, it was just a thing that came up when we were talking a lot to folks. So with that, I'm actually going to pass for the rest of the section over to Martha to do, you know, give us a chance to talk a little bit about our own experiences or y'all's own experiences of getting into the trades, and then share out some of the or heard when we were talking to folks. So Aaron, if you go one more slide, Martha, if you could take it away.
Yeah, so thanks, Joe. I think there was a wealth of statistics and information that's in sort of like, you know, written form that's really helpful for us to get context. And so I guess from what we've seen so far and what you all have seen on the ground and in the day-to-day and the work that you all do is that there's a need for us to figure out how we resolve the issue around recruitment and retention of women and people of color, gender nonconforming folks. And so to pull away from the data and also just the overall back-to-back Zooms, it'd be helpful for us to sort of center and ground ourselves on narrative and storytelling. So we wanted to open up the space for folks to feel comfortable, right, to step into the discomfort, but also feel comfortable in this space to share sort of your story. You know, how did you first hear about the trade? What was your first impression of the trade? What were challenges that you remember or recall? What were experiences that helped shape your sentiments and your feelings of the union? And I can kind of get us started, and then if folks feel comfortable, you know, opening up the floor, this is a safe space, right? That it would be awesome for folks to also, you know, give context, because nothing's more powerful than our own narratives, and is what we believe as organizers to help shape and shift the way that we move into action. And so, for me, my passion and my drive is organizing, but life circumstances really shifted my way into trades, into the building trades. And back in 2016, I was doing organizing with mechanical trade unions in the Bay Area in San Jose, California. And I was really excited, very passionate. The first task I had was to organize a strike, and on one of this developers that was just really shady, really greedy, and had a bad record with the unions. And so I had no knowledge of what that even entailed. My background's in like more other issues on housing and youth organizing and stuff like that. But that morning at 4 o'clock, my principal task was, you know, after all the logistics of the legal limitations and worries and getting the press there, serving donuts and coffee and just talking to the workers that were going around in circles with their picket signs. And the most moving imagery that I had on my first picket was a crew of women, electricians, who were just, they had like a phenomenal energy on that morning, just the unity, the power, you could feel it. I was just like, man, that's so cool, you know? So I got to go talk to them. You know, my background's in, you know, I went to higher ed, I didn't know anything. So moving through my discomfort, talking to these women, these really awesome women. And the first one I spoke to, she was this young woman who was pregnant, and it turns out she was, you know, she's an electrician, and, you know, she's the leader of her women's committee with the local. And I don't know, from then the seed was planted in my head. Like, I was talking to them about the trade, but more so their experience of being a tradeswoman. And it just really like moved me, like, hey, you know, like I could do this. Like, oh, like I never held tools, but I can. And so 2 years later, fast forward, I had to relocate for family reasons to El Paso. And I was, you know, there was no political organizing work here in Texas. And yeah, I found my way back into that little seed that was planted. And I went to the Union Hall, and the first faces I saw were these two women who were running the training center, the JTC. And the way that they welcomed me and talked to me was just super like warm. And then I found out we had a business manager who was a woman. And I was like, holy crap, she's a woman. Like, that's so cool, you know, like it made me feel more empowered and driven. And my goal was to carry my tools and like learn the skill and like get my license and like build power for our local union here. We're a right to work state, and I wanted to get back into political organizing through the trades. So I want to learn the skill. I wanted to carry tools, and it was my passion. And last year, COVID hit and things changed for me again. I was unemployed for 6 months, and I was like, I can't take it. I got bills, like, you know, I got to feed my dog. And so for me, you know, I had to find work, and thankfully I'm back with, you know, labor organizing. So my world's kind of meshed and I'm back in organizing. But it was the experience of having women in the trades, women at the front, people making me feel welcome, and it was possible. I mean, now I have other stories to tell being in the trade, but you know, it was really those points of entry where I felt welcomed. I felt like I belonged. I felt like it was possible to take the test, sign up, and try to see if I can get in that apprenticeship program. So that's kind of my path into the trade. So I would love to hear yours. So like, yeah, I just wanted to make space. So if there's anyone who got to share like, yeah, like how their experience with coming in the trades, how did you first hear about it, your first impressions, and then we'll go into the stories that we have drafted up that we want to share with you all as well, just to kind of frame the conversation, kind of give context on like why we're what the purpose is, right, for this training. So if anyone wants to step up, or I'll pick on people, I'm not a shy facilitator.
Martha, I'll share my story.
Thank you, Simon. One or two. So I'm gonna pick my next.
I'll share a couple and my opinion on things today. But I mean, I'm 51 years old, and when I started in the trades, it was more or less because of what I knew. Right, I grew up. My family were in the trades. My father was a tradesperson, and I knew that I could follow his footsteps and have a career that I could buy a home and do all the wonderful things that I want to do. But I feel that, and I love it. I mean, I love working with my hands. I love creating things. I love, even now on weekends, I've always got a project on the go because I just love doing it. It's rewarding. But nowadays, I feel with recruitment in the younger generation, it's a little more difficult because the kids are so educated to everything that is out there. It's literally a click of the mouse, right? And they're introduced to every career that's out there. And I feel over the years, the trades, unfortunately, in some cases have taken a backstage in choices of career. And I do see that turning around these days, but it's important in our approach to the young generation. You know, we have to be involved in social media. We have to tell our stories, actually. We have to make the trades popular again. And I don't think we do a good job of actually telling our experience in the trades. I have a wonderful life. I love it. And it's taken me in so many different directions. And that's the story that we need to share with them. But I do feel that a lot has changed over the years.
That's right. The wealth of benefits, right? The untapped career opportunity and growth, and just the communal aspect of like the brotherhood, sisterhood, like labor, familyhood, right? Like that's powerful. Thank you, Simon. Okay, I'm gonna pick one more person and then we'll go into the stories. So I saw, yes, Mike, yes.
Okay.
You're a little blurry. I don't know if you're hiding your anonymity over there. Anonymity.
I don't know what's going on. I got some technical issues here. So.
Some Windex on that screen.
No.
Just kidding.
Well, I want to share my experience. I am now just turned 52 and been in the trade 28 years. And how I first got on, I was a non-union laborer on site with all union trades. And out of my crew, first of all, I was the only Black on a construction site, okay? And this one gentleman came up to me from the Painters Union and said that, you know, you're the only family man out of your crew, you need benefits, you need to, you know, check out the Painters Union. And so I did, and got the call. My first job was at the Dome when the Rams came, before they came to town. And I was there 3 years. And I was told that I was gonna run big work when I was an apprentice. Someone saw something in me that I didn't see. And now me working with young individuals, I have that same vision for individuals. And when I was at the Dome, I was like the cub apprentice. I mean, the apprentice foreman. I had the radio. I thought I was big stuff, you know? And so after that, I went on to actually start running work my second year apprenticeship all the way through my career. And you know, it took care of my family and all of that. And I experienced quite a bit being a young Black man. And one of the things that didn't break me is because I was a family man. And I wasn't gonna let anyone stop me from taking care of my family. And so, when I used to get loaned out, everybody knew that I ran work, but when I got sent to other jobs, they would put me in the utility closets and the stairwells. Guess what? They used to put me in them areas with guys, and we used to get together, have fun, knock stuff out, laugh and joke, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you guys having too much fun, but we're gonna get it done, you know? I've been treated a lot of ways, different unfair ways, but it never stopped me. And then like dealing with the young individuals at Job Corps, the young Blacks, I have to explain to them the difference between being an apprentice. It's almost like pledging, because the first thing they say, well, I got to clean their brushes out. They making me do that because I'm Black. Or why I got to do this. And I'm like, no, it's not that. But there are some cases, but for the most part, you know, we've been kicked on a lot of times. You know, you walk past a dog that's been kicked all the time, he gonna jump, you know? And so, and I feel like I'm here to help change the idea of young individuals that look like me.
Yes, Mike, I appreciate you for stepping up and sharing, because those are real stories, and it's so hard sometimes to really live those and then also recount those kinds of things. And it's in our nature to like downplay and like fight and just keep going on that day to day and put that hard hat on and just go, right? but I feel you, and I can relate as a woman, well, as a femme, you know, perceived as this, right, always read as a woman, right, just cleaning cart after cart after cart. It's like, okay, when am I gonna actually do my trade skills work, like development as an apprentice? But you try to just keep on, like, it's because I'm an apprentice, but yes, every experience is different. I want to hear from one woman. I saw some engagement from Antoinette when I was sharing, so maybe you might want to share. And then, do we have time for one more? Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it would be good.
I'm sorry, I'm picking on you. Crystal went hiding off screen. So Antoinette, if you don't mind sharing, like, just anything, like your perception, how you came into the trades, like doing this work.
That's difficult for me because I'm not a tradesperson. I came in, I have the background of being from a union family, so I have tremendous respect for unions. So my role has been more of an advocacy role based on the way I grew up. I'm from Gary, Indiana. My dad was a truck driver. He was a teamster. And so I have a different perspective. I care deeply about what women care about and the fact that we should be able to be tradespersons if we want to be. So anything I can do to help move that along is important to me. I've been here for 3 years. I've learned a lot about the Painters Union, been able to contribute, and that's pretty much my story. So it's a little different from some of the other ladies, maybe.
Any other ladies, any other non-men want to say anything before we move on? Just trying to make room. No pressure, no pressure. Okay, cool. I appreciate y'all for sharing. If anything else, like, you know, please let us know in the chat. We'll have more space for engagement. We're gonna shift into the stories that we have captured. Joe, you want us to go through all of them? Okay.
Yeah, I just dropped it into the chat as it's just a little PowerPoint. We'll just take maybe, checking on the time, maybe about 10 minutes, and folks can like look through them on their own. I think this is, I don't remember exactly, I think it's 7 or 8 stories that folks had. And these, you know, it's abbreviated so we can like fit it into a slideshow, but as close to possible, we try to use people's actual words and experiences and so on. So yeah, give it till about, yeah, between 5 and 10 minutes, because kind of people can also just drop in the chat of like, yeah, I've read through them, ready to talk, and then we'll come back and discuss them.
They're really short, and some of the stuff that we just shared right now is going to be pretty relatable. So yeah, I would recommend, yeah, like go through them, and then if you want to take notes or whatever, and we'll come back and talk about them in 10 minutes. You can feel free to like go off camera. Like Joe said, the link is right there for the doc, for the PowerPoint with this member stories. So, through those little stories. Give folks maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll regroup. So we'll go ahead and get started, just to give a few minutes here, just in case, just to frame the conversation. So those stories they're, you know, pretty real. They're based off of different experiences of actual trades folks across the regions, and the stories you can see as you like compare, put them next to each other. The experiences are very different, although the common thread is wanting to build and build their skill set and be involved in a union, right? In a skills that you're going to build in the trades. The experiences are very different and illuminate different based on race and gender. I mean, there's other characteristics to think of too that are not outlined in these. These are very simplified, simplistic for sake of time. But I think aside from the differences, I'd like to hear any familiarity in the stories of members who don't come from the same background as you in terms of race and gender. Is there something that was similar in a different story, in a story that was different from your own identity or experience? Is there something that came up that was like, oh yeah, I can relate to that, even if the race or the gender of the narrative was different than your own?
once they joined the union. There was a
Is it just me or is Kenneth cutting in and out? It's cutting in and out, huh? Sorry, Kenneth. I wish I could hear you. It sounded like you were on one. Maybe you can chat it in. Also, if it's helpful, you can call in if your audio is not working too well. Like call in on a separate line over videos.
And what I notice is that tough situations come up, whether it's related to race or just, someone being disrespectful to you. So there are lots of challenging situations that occur on site, and having, being part of a union and having to have someone be, have your back is priceless.
That's right. That's right. And reminding members, right? Like you are protected, you're under contract, you're represented, right?
Yeah, that protection, bar none, you can't find that anywhere else.
Yes, thank you, Antoinette. Is there anyone else who identifies something that was common in the narrative, but the identity of that narrative was different than your own? Was there anything surprising, like anything surprising in the narrative? You were like, oh man, I didn't even realize like someone could go through that, or that's happened. Anything new that was surprising to you in the narrative, or?
I've been around the trade for a while. They didn't even have an apprenticeship when I started out. It's been that far ago. I tell everybody I put lead paint on. I've been around so long, I put lead paint on. So, but I can relate to a lot of these stories. Running work and having, when I started out, I'll be honest with you guys, it was male, pale, and stale. That's all it was there, okay? That's the best way I can say it. And that was the demise of the unions, because they just did not see it any other way. My book was given to me because I knew someone. That's how you got in back then in the early 80s. I think late 70s and probably all the 70s and even through most of the 80s, it was that way. If you didn't know somebody, you weren't getting in. But running work and having a diverse crew could be somewhat of a challenge at times. And you really had to stay on top of it. You had discipline, even people you wanted really like, but you had to discipline if it went too far. And I think because of that is the reason we're able to, it's getting better because people are starting to recognize that now. I mean, you're down there and whether it's just someone, that whether it was a female or someone of another race, I mean, you had to stay on top of that. And I fired several people over that, and the union would come to me and I was like, listen, you got the problem, I don't. And I mean, I'm a union guy and I'm really behind them, but at the same time, these people are out of line, whether no matter what was going on. And I think that's why it's starting to open up now. I think people are starting to see that. Like Simon said, though, here in the States, we've crushed it. One was the diversity. We didn't accept diversity. And the other one was not talking about the trades like we should. You know what I mean? I mean, I talk to people now, they're like, you guys are the best kept secret in the country. And it's a shame. I mean, we just don't publicize enough. Gus knows what I'm talking about there. He's looking at me right now smiling. He definitely knows what I'm talking about. But we just have not done well at advertising what we have. I hate to say it, but that's where we're at.
Rick, you just gave like a whole bunch of knowledge. I'm so grateful for you where you open with, I wrote like the trades were male, pale, and stale. Like I've never heard that. And it's a hard truth. And it makes, right, like it could be uncomfortable to recognize that for trade unions. But like what I love about IUPAT in the time I've been working with y'all in the 6 months is like you are at the forefront of trying to unpack and just like transform. And so like the fact that we're all sitting here today with what just happened last week in Washington, D.C. and sitting with discomfort and having these hard conversations is powerful. And so like, yes, like, thank you. Like that's hard truth. And yes, we have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And so thank you, Rick, for that comment. And I appreciate you. And Gus, you look like you were sitting up to say something. So I don't want to cut you off.
No, I was just agreeing, with Rick with a lot of the stuff, but personally, I came in with the bridge painters in New York, so I think it was a fortunate thing because in the bridge painter trade when I came in, it was just from day one, it was always surrounded by immigrants. We were always either first generation or just off the boat. So and how we got here off the boat was another story. So a lot of us, my own family included, came in various fun ways under or over fences. So it's something that it was one thing where we saw that and just everyone coming into your site was from all over the world. I mean, we had at first it was a lot of Greeks and Eastern Europeans, then it was Brazilians, then Cape Verdeans. So and it's just constantly flow of people coming in that way. So you just really get a chance, and I think that was one of the big takeaways I got from the stories is it's not just people trying to be like us here discussing all this and trying to be inclusive. It's I think we all get that. That's why we're here. We're all trying to do what we can, working with everybody and realizing we're all the same. We're all working hard for our families. But it's sometimes it's people on the job, people that you try to get people on job sites, and just some people that don't get it, that need to be more educated, that need to be, I guess, more immersed and seeing things and understanding, how to act and react with people around them, what's right and wrong, what's ethical and unethical. So it's a big thing. I think that just needs a lot of work from everybody.
Yes, and that's why we're here, right? And hopefully, as the day goes along, we'll be able to not just sit with the discomfort of the realities, but also move into other steps of inspiring and agitating one another to build strategy and build solution into what we do on the day-to-day in what's in our capacity. We can't solve the world's issues, but we can actually work in the framework of where we have power, and that's your union. So any last comments or reactions before I hand it over to Joe?
I had to back Gus up with that. I came into a lot of immigrants with the bridge painting too, but that didn't mean you was still diversity in the race. Okay, I hate to say that, but there wasn't. We're making it, and sometimes when I was teaching apprentice and even as a business rep, I'd have to tell people, look, this, and there was a window there when it was Americans, a small window that was Americans. Then when you start bringing the Latinos in and stuff, they're like, well, I said, how do you think that all got started? And they just could never grasp at it. We're very prejudiced. I'll put it that way. And it get them to adjust that way. It's very difficult at times.
Yes, and there's always going to be someone who they're going to try to pit against, right, one another, right? And we see a lot of that in the Latinx community with anti-Blackness, right? It's like we have to be united as a front against any racist rhetoric or violence that plays out in the day-to-day at the larger scheme. So thank you, Rick. I appreciate those truths again. I'll kick it over to Joe. Yeah. I feel like we got some great.
Yeah, no, it's great. I just want to do a couple of wrap-ups before we head into a break. Trying to keep us all on our assigned breaks. Don't want the first grievance I handle to be you did not give us our allotted 15 minutes. But wanted to pull out just and kind of echo a couple of things that folks said. One of the things that I found really striking, and when we were putting these stories together, is that there are these commonalities across race and gender, but they play out differently. Where everyone shows up to work hard. That's a universal. Everyone values the fact that the trade involves hard work and appreciates the challenge. But as a general trend, when we were talking to folks, white men tended to talk about this is an opportunity to work hard because I value hard work. Women and people of color tended to talk about I felt like I had to work hard to prove myself. I had to show that I was a hard worker because the assumption was that I was not. So there's a common thread there of valuing the hard work, but then the like, just it plays out differently for different folks. And like the part of the reason we included, some more kind of quote unquote traditional stories is like, there's nothing wrong with going into the trade because your dad did it and it's a good job and you value the union. Like there's zero things wrong with that. It's just recognizing that like that's not a path that's going to work to get a lot of particularly women and people of color into the trade. Or another of those commonalities a couple people brought up, the value of having a union who has your back, right? Again, not everybody, not 100%, but as a trend, like usually when we talk, a lot of the white men in these stories are directors of training or other people been around the union for 20 or 30 years. And they often came into the union with some sense of solidarity already, some idea of like a union job is a good job, the union has your back. And a lot of the women and people of color came in with a like, well, this is better pay and better working conditions, but didn't particularly like value the union until they saw that the union was willing to stand up for them, especially around things that were about gender or race. Like Rick, I'd be willing to bet that over the years, like some of the members that you stood up for by firing the people who were being unacceptable probably like came off that job site and like, I didn't know about this union, but the foreman, like Rick was willing to fire that guy who was out of line, and like after that they were all in. That was something that we heard again and again talking to both women and people of color who were members of different trades, was that once they knew that the union had their back, especially on race and gender, they went way past like, I show up and pay my dues, and started being the people who come to meetings, who volunteer for things, who do this, that, and the other, and talk up the union to their friends, their family, tell their nephew it's a good job, tell their niece it's a good job, that kind of thing. So with that, I just wanted to pull that out. I mean, y'all said this stuff, but I just wanted to like kind of put a bow on it. Really appreciate everyone sharing. We'll take about a 10, 12-minute break and come back at quarter after. I'm avoiding time zones here, just going to use quarter after, so whatever time zone you're on. And we'll just leave the same link up and everything. Like, so part of the camera, partly apparently all the years of when I was a kid, my mom telling me to sit up straight was actually in preparation to be on camera for Zoom meetings. Don't know how Nancy Pope could see the future, but apparently she could. I think folks are kind of filtering back on. We've got another minute or so. Mike Anderson, if I got to warn you on one of these breaks, we're going to try to do a St. Louis small world story. See how many degrees of separation we are. All right. So I think folks are generally back. Hope everyone got a chance to stretch out and rest your eyes at the very least. So this second section, we're going to look at some case study, or sorry, first some sort of best overall approaches for increasing recruitment and retention of women and people of color, and then look at some more stuff from particular district councils in both the U.S. and Canada, so that we can get a sense of like what are people currently doing that's working, so we can start thinking about like, so if this this is working in Kansas City, New York, wherever, is it a thing that we could do in our own location? So if Aaron, if you would be so good as to do the slides again, and I will.
Joe, do we want to do a round of intros?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, we totally just talked about that.
For folks who came in late.
Yeah, so especially as we don't have we got a few enough folks, I think we could do a slightly a little bit more instead of just doing in the chat, just do a little round of introductions. I'll just call folks out because I've got the participant list open here. But if folks could just say, your name, what your role is, and your district council or whatever including location. I at least do not know all the numbers of, like, if you say District Council 9, that does not automatically to me mean a geography. So yeah, just name your role and where you're at in terms of the council or location.
Can I just be a rule breaker and add one thing? If you
Yeah.
could, one word on how you're feeling about like this being in this training right now. Just one word. Just gonna poll, see how more hype we need to be.
Sounds good. All right, I'm just gonna go. This is just alphabetical order. So starting with Antoinette.
I'm unmuted now. I'm Antoinette Green. I work for LMCI. I'm the affiliate service director. I work quite a bit with our field staff. I'm assigned to DC 51, which is Maryland, DC, and Virginia. And what was the other question? I feel like I missed something.
One word about how you feel, like about this, how it's going, just to make us feel good or bad. I don't know.
I'm inspired to learn more. Clearly, we all want to bring more folks into the union and engage them in a better and different way. So, yeah.
Thank you. And then your name shows up on here as Costas, but people call you Gus. Is that right?
Yep. So it's Gus Diamantis or Costas, but DC 9, New York, Director of Training. I think that's it. And about the training, so far good. It's something that's necessary. So
Great.
there's more of it. So
Thank you. Crystal.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Garcia. I'm also from District Council 9 out of New York, and I am feeling hopeful.
Thank you, Crystal. Dan Pensky.
Hi, Dan Pensky. I'm from District Council 4 in Buffalo. I am the apprentice training rep for the Eastern region of the IUPAT, and I'm going to say open.
Thank you, Dan. Gavin.
I'm Gavin McDonald. I work for Finishing First LMCI and FTI in marketing communications, and I say encouraged.
Thank you. Kenneth.
I think Kenneth was having some sound issues.
Oh yeah, that's right. I assume that Kenneth is doing great, and wherever he is awesome. We're just gonna like put that out there and hope it turns into reality if it's not already true. Mike Anderson. Got a couple of mics on. Mike might not be back yet. Mike, let's see, there was another Mike. I think Mike Hines said he was going to be in and out, so I'm not sure if he's on right now. But Rick Matthews.
Rick Matthews, industry liaison for the LMCI, Finishing First LMCI. Got to get that right, Gab. And my background's industrial. That's my trade specific as an industry liaison.
What area are you in?
I live in Eastern Ohio, but I cover the United States, and I even try to sneak into Canada when they'll let me. So
every now and then. I have not tried to sneak into Canada yet, but I'm pretty sure they won't let me. There's probably need a passport for starters. And then last but not least, Scott.
Yes, my name's Scott Keeping. I'm with I'm Director of Servicing for District Council 39 in Eastern Canada. And one word for me would be excited.
Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Martha, for remembering that we had just said we were going to do that, because I had already forgotten. My short-term memory is not the best. So with that, Aaron, if you wouldn't mind throwing up the slideshow and sharing your screen. All right. So like I said, so this section, we're going to cover best approaches, kind of overall strategies that have worked for a number of district councils. Going to look at some case studies in particular in a little more depth, and then talk about kind of what those strategies will look like or might look like for you in your area. Next slide. So we put these as approaches or the sort of best practices because there isn't a step by step you do the exact same thing every place, but there are overall strategies that tend to work. And we're going to spend a little time on each of these, but I want to run through all of them, and then Martha and I will just kind of pass back and forth. So having authentic messengers for the trade or the trades, sharing the work across, so it's not all landing on one person within a local or a district council or a training center. Meaningful presence and visibility in the community, and particularly in whatever communities that you're most interested in recruiting in. Collaboration between the hall or the business side and the JATC side, and having a welcoming environment in the union itself, both on the job site and at the hall or other kind of union spaces. So, yeah.
Yeah, so the first element around authentic messengers. So thinking about who are your best ambassadors, these are the sort of bullet points, sort of key points of to remember to help in terms of like when you're thinking through who are those folks that we want out in the community, out in the field, whatever with COVID online now doing outreach, like who are those folks that are going to be the points, our champions, our best champions to go out into the community and really uplift, right, and promote the benefits and the experiences of going into your trade union. So it's shared identity, personal investment, and then firsthand experience. So when we talk about shared identity, we're talking about someone going to a high school career fair or wherever it is that y'all do outreach, right? And we're going to talk about that. About where to best do outreach, right, to recruit women and non-gender conforming folks and people of color, right? But in general, who do we want out there? We want folks that these women and people of color and non-gender conforming folks can identify with, who have that common identity, that when they go out there, they feel comfortable approaching them, asking questions and learning from this person about the trades, about your trade union and the craft that you all specifically have, that you're trying to uplift and promote, and not just around like the identity, but also like the characteristics of their experience, right? Like that those folks you're trying to recruit can identify with, and thinking through to like neighborhoods that folks that you want to outreach to, do they have that in common? The first folks you're trying to promote and get out there into the community. Can they share like similar background in terms of their upbringing? Like here in El Paso, everyone is like, oh, what high school did you go to? That's how people identify where they grew up, right? And so having that commonality is really important. Family upbringing, if they're a veteran, right? Faith-based communities, like this identity and experience of your members that you're trying to get out there, like can they relate in that level? School, like I said, going to the same school, or language, like the identity in terms of culture and language. Personal investment is about like, okay, you have kind of like what Mike was talking about when we first started. It's like you have members already who got into it. Somehow they found their way, right? Whatever pathway it was, they made their way into your trade. And they want to see more people like them, right, in their trade and uplift them. So they'd be your best advocate to put out there to help promote and recruit. And then firsthand experience is really about, anyone can share what their experience was in the field, but it's really going to hit home when it's someone that shares a similar identity as you, because those experiences are a little bit more unique than any other person, right? So those shape the way that you can do successfully, like do outreach and build that relationship, right? Because that's how organizing is. It's like building relationships and connecting. So sometimes the best champion is folks that people can identify with. We have a toolkit that we shared with y'all, or that we're going to be sharing. I think, Joe, maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, we shared afterwards.
So yeah, so be on the lookout for that because it will be the ambassador's toolkit, right? Like that will help kind of supplement what we're talking about here in terms of outreach. Joe?
Yeah,
You can go to
next slide, please. So the next kind of overall approach is about sharing the work, you know, which takes a couple of different forms. One is just like making sure that there are small asks around recruitment. Obviously, there's stuff that, you know, if you're trying to start a big new program or something like that, you might need an investment of real resources or like a sign off from, you know, the director of training or the business manager or somebody. But there's a lot of stuff that is smaller and more manageable that you know, just makes actually a bigger difference than you might think. Of just, if you're gonna have somebody going to a job fair, making sure an apprentice goes and not just an instructor, asking current members, you know, especially women and people of color, like to each invite, you know, a friend or family member to come to some event where they're actually get a chance to see the trade in action. You know, that kind of thing can actually, you know, I'm sure that nobody on this call needs more work to do. And so that type of thing can, you know, be a pretty small investment of time and energy, but like can take a lot of, both take work off your plate, but also actually like pay off a pretty fair amount. The only caution is just be conscious about if you're asking a member to help out with an event during work hours, because you know, if that may not be doable for them. The second piece is training others, and this kind of, all these things go together. So this kind of goes back to the talking about authentic messengers. But you know, if you've trained other folks how to be kind of, you know, evangelists for the trade, how to be boosters, how to go to a job fair, and so on, you know, it increases the number of things you can cover without using up the time of the director of training or the instructors or other folks who are always strapped. You know, if you've got somebody who's you know, currently a glazier and loves the work and like knows how to talk about the apprenticeship program and the basics, he can probably do the job fair or like go to career day at the local high school without needing to also, you know, take up the time of you know, either a hall side or JATC side staff person. And another thing that would talk a little bit more about in one of the other approaches around collaborating between the hall and training side, but there's often a lot of overlapping needs within the union overall that, you know, an organizer who's, you know, working on non-union job sites trying to, you know, get a new signatory contractor, or who's working out in the community on a political campaign, is probably talking to people that you would want to be recruiting into the apprenticeship program. And so you can actually sort of double up some, right? You know, making sure that they're equipped to be able to do both of those things at once. If they're already going out to talk to people, community organizations about, you know, city council or mayoral campaign or community benefits agreement campaign or something like that, they're probably talking to the people that, you know, either they or people in that community organization probably are folks you want to be recruiting. The local or the district council will often need to have relationships with, you know, Black or Latinx led community organizations because they've got clout at the city council, that kind of thing. So they often are already building relationships where it would actually build that relationship even more if you're helping that organization's members get into the apprenticeship program. You know, the details are going to vary hugely from one place to another, right? You know, I can name what some of those like overlapping things are in St. Louis, but like I don't have the first clue about you know, New York or Chicago. But there's a good chance that there's other folks within the union who actually like overlap in what they need to be doing, and that makes it a lot easier to actually to make it a sort of a whole union project and something that isn't just falling on any one person's to-do list. So next slide and pass it back to Marta.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So yeah, when we talk about, you know, this idea of meaningful presence and visibility, it goes back to this concept of authentic and genuine, you know, way of doing things. It's about the practice, right? It's not about just who you're putting out there and get it in and moving to promote, but it's also about how you're trying to connect, right, and align. And so when we talk about, you know, getting the word out about who you are, it's like sorry, I forgot who said it. Who said, someone said, Simon, yeah, it was Simon. You said that, you know, we got to get people to know what it is that we have to offer. It's like, yes, people need to know what you have to offer in terms of benefits and also just the power of like the protection of being in a union job and a union culture, but also it's about the skill. It's about the craft. Like people don't know, like there's a lot of assumptions and stereotypes about who painters and glaciers are. Like how do you get the word out about your specific craft to inspire and motivate the possibility of this type of career for, you know, for folks to be able to access the knowledge, to be able to know, because a lot of times people don't have that uncle or that father who came into the craft and brought their next generation in, right? And so it's about, you know, not who you get to reach to get to the message, but it's about how, you know, how you're going about it. And so it's about the, you know, letting them know about the experience they'll get when they come in, the sense of support and solidarity as a union, you know, brother or sister, or just like comrade in the union, and the values added in the community, right? Like these are employable opportunities. This is like workforce development, right? This is economic preservation of communities, to be able to have working class families staying, you know, having a pipeline for financial stability. You can tailor it however you wish based on what's the reality of like who's in your union. Like, you know, for a lot of women, like single women, this is a financial independence opportunity, right? So there's a lot of ways in which you frame what you have to offer that can resonate uniquely for different audiences to align with their principles and their values as well. So yeah, let's see. And then in terms of meeting people where they're at, this is what I was sort of referencing earlier. It's like, you can't do this, you can't act, you got to be uncomfortable with doing your outreach, right? Traditionally, maybe you may not go into, you have your union go into a Black church or a Black high school or the tribal council of an Indigenous group, you know, in Canada. But thinking about ways and opportunities to build authentically those relationships so that you can be invited, right? And that you're not just being transactional, you're being transformative. You're not just going there to ask to sell your trade. You're going there to build relationships, to learn what their issues are, to offer an invitation to learn more about the craft, right? It's about aligning on issues too, not just because you want representation, but you also care about the people that you're trying to recruit into this trade and the members you're trying to keep in your trade. If, you know, for people of color, thinking about the Black Lives Matter movement, right? It's hard for us to sometimes take a position, but when you are taking a position, it's like you're caring about those folks and those individuals as a holistic individual and the way that they are impacted in society, right? Not just to like, all right, we got them as a member, but we're also seeing them in their whole, as a whole. What else? I just want to make sure I don't leave anything out. Yeah, it's like an authentic way of exchanging and offering rather than selling and just selling and promoting yourself, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll hand it over to Joe and we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, thank you. So the fourth thing at the top is a best approach is collaboration across the hall and training side. In some ways, this goes right back to some of the stuff we said earlier, but it bears kind of having its own point. There's something we found in talking to folks in different district councils was pretty consistently when whether we're talking to a business manager or director of training, if they said, "Oh yeah, like the hall and the training side, you know, think about this stuff, work on it together," that almost always meant that things were going to be going well. Or at the very least, you know, in some cases, people are like, "Hey, we just started this a year or two ago, so it's not going well yet, but like it was on the right track." So you know that some of it is this, you have the same relationships, like I mentioned earlier. You know, if you're trying to get a community benefits agreement that, or get, you know, a city department or a city to agree to responsible contractor standards or something like that, that's going to help the industry as a whole, you're going to have a need to have organizations on your side besides the Central Labor Council and the Building Trades Council. Like you're going to need probably, depending on where you're at, either Black or Latinx or both like led organizations in order to actually win these things. And they're going to have people in their memberships that you want to be recruiting apprentices from. Direct organizing, obviously this varies a lot depending on your market share and what the conditions are in your market wherever you're at. But the the organizers who are actually trying to get new signatory contractors, they're probably talking to they're talking to people who are working at non-union contractors who are much more likely to, than union contractors often to be people of color, and they're sure as hell going to be better off in the union than not. And so they can not just be talking about organizing that a new signatory, but also talking about getting folks into the apprenticeship program. And then if there's more political focused organizing, whether it's electoral or around a specific campaign or piece of legislation or something, it's probably alongside people and groups that we want to be sending apprentices towards the IUPAT. And last, like it's repeating, but it bears repeating, is it is just a really clear way to share some of the work across staff and leaders within your district council, so that it doesn't become a thing that's either landing on two people where it's just too much work, and also it doesn't become a thing where this type of collaboration helps keep it from getting siloed. It helps keep it from being a like, oh, Dan worries about that stuff, so it's Dan's problem and I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just using Dan because I can see him on my screen. Obviously, I'm sure that everyone in your district council would never think such a thing and would never let anything just land on your plate. But in theory, that might happen. So it also, this kind of collaboration helps make everyone feel responsible and bought into it. And that just makes for better results overall. So last, I'll pass it back to Martha for the last one, and then we'll look at some case studies.
Yeah, so the idea of creating a welcoming environment. So the first element of that many of your district councils already do, which is so awesome, is mentoring, a mentorship program. So thinking about how to advance or sort of beef up, I guess you could say, what you already have, or if you don't have it, how to establish a mentorship program. I know when I joined the trade, like having a woman, I mean, we only had one journey woman, she identified a journeyman, but having one journey woman and then having trying to recruit more apprentices, like representation matters, right? And so if we would have had at least that connection, I mean, I obviously took initiative and got to know her, but if there's an ability to establish having a woman and a woman, or a person of color connection in a mentorship that helps to kind of build the skill set, also the advising on how to handle, a lot of crap goes on in the work site, but how to cope when you have crap go on in the work site to stay in the trade, and to how to resolve, and how to get people at the front end, right? When points of entry, to be able to understand how to handle and the value of the union and what the union does and stuff like that. Mentorship is powerful. And so thinking about if you already have it, how do you make it better? And then if you don't have it, how to build it up. And let's see. And then, just to say that this is an actual apprentice, and who also, got recruited through tabling, right? And became an ambassador. So she herself is an ambassador with the IUPAT. The other element is committees. So there's, a way to establish a place for folks to build that camaraderie specifically as a woman or a person of color, gender nonconforming person, to be able to have that camaraderie, to have that space to feel supported, but also troubleshooting issues. I know to transform your union, to build power on specific issues impacting, women and people of color through the union, and have the union have a committee to troubleshoot that, is demonstrating that you care. And if a new apprentice that you're trying to recruit knows about that, it's oh, okay, I have a place, there will be a place for me to build. And also empower leadership, right? Let's see. And then first impressions. So this was really impactful for me, as I had mentioned. Like you have, you know, a person of color or a non-man, right? Like come in, a woman come into your hall, you know, like you want them to feel welcome and embraced. Like you don't want them, you want to be assuming that they're here to, you know, apply for a clerk's position. You want them to feel like, hey, you know, you want them to feel like they're treated like an applicant, just like any other person. And that, you know, like they might be having in their minds, like I did, I've never held tools. Like I didn't even do a pre-apprenticeship program. No, you're welcome here. You have the opportunity like everyone else. Like you feel comfortable, like, and giving them that respect, just as we would anyone else, right? That there's a culture and a welcoming environment for them, and that they're not going to be patronized or, you know, treated in a paternal way, right? But that they're going to just be respected and affirmed as soon as they are in that first point of contact, whether it's at a booth, at a career fair, or if it's at your hall. Like that person is going to be recognized and treated with respect across the board. Whether it's a business rep or it's a clerk, a front desk staff. So yeah, just thinking about how to be welcoming and inclusive in the different contexts of points of contact for a potential new apprentice. And then Joe, you wanna?
Yeah, thank you. So we're gonna, let's see what's gonna be the best way to do this. So we're gonna do at least, let's call it 3 breakout groups. If Nicole, if you could start setting those up. We've got a couple of case studies from particular district councils, and we'll have about, let me check my agenda. I think about 10 minutes in the small groups for folks to look at the case study, discuss like in your small group, what is the, you know, how does this case study line up with what we just talked about for best approaches? Is this a thing that seems like the type of thing we could do within our own district council? You know, what will be the challenges? What will be hard about getting this going, or what will be exciting about it? Just so we can start to kind of talk about, you know, what things would look like as we're actually doing them. I'm trying to think about the best way to do the breakout rooms, because I think, Nicole, like if we probably have to assign people, because I think if we do Zoom's, you know, automatic assignment or assign randomly, it might put, you know, all of the facilitators in one room or something like that.
Yeah, I think I broke down everybody. So we've got 3 rooms, about 5 people each, excluding myself. And each of you are in one of the rooms, and you want to do it for 10 minutes?
Yeah, and folks should be able to see each of the case studies. And I believe when it sends us to the breakout room, it'll say like, you're being sent to breakout room number 1, number 2, number 3. So just like do the case study that's for that number, because that way, you know, people can discuss different things. And when we come back, people will have different things to share from the different case studies.
All right, well, if you guys are ready, I will send you all away.
Yeah, let's give it a solid 10 minutes.
Okay.
It doesn't do the gentle, like, you should probably go back. It's like, boom, here we go.
I thought you had like 30 seconds, but apparently you don't.
That's so rude. I got cut off, Joe.
Yeah, well, you know, 30 seconds isn't enough for me to form a complete thought. I
think it's a setting, though. I think it can be changed.
But yeah, I think we are there for all back, because it doesn't give us a lot of choice. And Martha, I'm trying to remember if you or I is facilitating the full group comeback. Nope, I am. Cool. I'm just gonna stick with it then. I had to look at like our cheat sheet of who's doing what. I'm like, is this me? Yeah, this is me. So yeah, we had 3 different case studies. So I'm curious to hear from one of the groups that I wasn't in, because I know what we said. Other folks, like what stood out to you about the case study? Either you know, something that you think you wouldn't have thought of, or something that resonates with you know, what you see in your district.
Crystal 8.
So Martha volunteered me to be the speaker and report back for our group. We were in group 1, so we did case study 1. So reading through this case study, I found a lot of similarities with the work that we do here at DC9. We do a lot of community outreach. We do work with a lot of different community organizations and churches and nonprofits from different backgrounds, whether it's religious, whether it's like ethnic groups. And my role here as the Director of Community Affairs, I stepped into that position in July of 2018. So ever since then, we have been doing a lot more of that work. We're being more mindful and strategic in the work that we do when it comes to community outreach and engaging our members. And another thing that I think stood out to me was like in the bottom paragraph, they were discussing the Latinx community and recruiting those types of members, and how DC3 was able to recruit about 200 Spanish-speaking apprentices. But in the bottom paragraph, they highlighted a challenge that the council faced with not having enough bilingual staff to help translate. And I think that's an issue that I see across the board in a lot of councils, and even at the international level. One thing that I'm encouraging our leadership to do here is to translate a lot of the things, a lot of the documents that we send out, a lot of the union, even the bylaws, for example, right? They should be translated into Spanish, because that's like the next most popular language within our membership here. And if we want to hold our members accountable to following these rules, then we should make sure that they understand the rules that they are to uphold, and just even understanding the communications that go out about opportunities for classes or opportunities to come out and volunteer and engage with the union on different levels. So I think that's something that's extremely important, and I am trying to push to do here. And I mean, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, that's the, I think it's technically sort of Western Missouri, but it's primarily Kansas City and Kansas City area district council. And so they also focused on Spanish speaking members, just or new members, because that is the population in Kansas City when they were looking at both on the political side of who is important for getting a mayor in who would be pro-union in Kansas City, but also looking at, you know, just the demographics of who lives there. And that was the most important piece. And, you know, most of the country here, like Spanish is often going to be the second most important language, but, you know, depending on what city you're in, you may also have decent Spanish kind of translations and stuff or bilingual folks on staff, but you might be missing some other language that's really important where you're at. The third group, I think, Aaron, were you in that one? Is it anybody at that third group want to share their impressions from the case study they were looking at? And I think, which one is that? Yeah, that's the DC
the DC area engaged the DC summer program and really brought a lot of young kids in summer programs and really engaged younger people. Dan, you had a lot to say about that and thinking about what this could look like in Buffalo. I don't know if you want to share some of your thoughts. Oh, Dan dropped off.
Oh, do you guys want me to share our responses that way?
Yeah.
Ooh, somebody took notes. That didn't occur to me.
So we saw a lot of best approaches in this particular case study. And in fact, that's our district, my district council. And I do know the former director of training was very proactive on these workforce committees and a lot of outreach to the communities. We've seen him bring pre-apprentices to the International Training Center, and that was happening, you know, just before we shut down for COVID. So they're young kids, they're still in high school or right after high school. So they, you know, we see a lot of positives and best approaches, you know, in the way that DC 51 has approached this this topic. So I think that maybe Simon or I don't know if Dan left, but they could talk a little bit more about what they can see, or Mike can see what's happening in their DCs. Like Mike says, they're going out to trade schools and community organizations. We don't seem to have a whole lot of trade schools anymore, or shop classes in schools. So that's definitely a challenge. Simon, you might have more to say about that or the challenges.
Sorry. Yeah, I do have some comments on DC 51 and their approach to the pre-apprenticeship program. I think it's awesome. I mean, they're working with kids that are 15 and 16 and 17 years old. And the conversation that we were having is, you know, this not only gives them the opportunity to be introduced to all the trades that we represent while they're in high school, and instill this in their mind when they're making the next step to college or the trades. But it also gives us an opportunity to get to their parents so they have a full understanding of the opportunities that are available. Like, you know, our apprentices can finish, you know, a few credits shy of an associate's degree after their apprenticeship program. And that's just a great benefit. What else did we talk about?
We did talk a little bit about, Simon and I have a little experience reaching out to the communities with the American School Counselors. For the past 2 years, we've attended their annual meeting, and we were so busy on the floor the entire time the expo was open, and people were coming to us saying, what are your freebies? Because you've got a line of people all the time. But they were teachers, they were counselors. They had never heard of our trades. They didn't know what a glazer was. They didn't know anything about our trades, or that, as Simon was saying, they can get a debt-free education and have a trade and be set for life. So that was really eye-opening for us, going into this whole work group that we've been working on, and seeing that there's just little to no information at all about our trades floating around out there.
I'll just add that if folks have an interest in thinking about getting more engaged with schools, the Minneapolis Building Trades Construct Tomorrow program, which we can send out the link to later, is growing and fantastic. I mean, not in the pandemic, but is, I don't know what they're doing now, but if they're doing something virtual, but it's gotten to be a huge thing, engaging tons of high schools. Very popular, has improved the building trades relationship with the school systems. It's a really great model for engaging younger people and their parents too.
Yeah, thanks all. And we did not delegate a person from our group, but is anyone who is in that group, the second case study, which is the Nova Scotia District Council. Want to report back? Have any thoughts from what we talked about?
Would you like to give? I can give like an overview of summary on what we did, if you want.
Yeah, because this is Scott's district council. So.
Okay, so what we found that when we were looking for recruits, we were hitting a wall, and we used job ads, Facebook, Indeed, social media to try to find recruits. And I don't know if individuals just were not interested in applying or whatever. So we decided to start reaching out to the minority groups, and we reached out to 4 groups: Immigration Services of Nova Scotia, the Women's Group, Women's Unlimited, Aboriginal Group, and the Black Nova Scotian community. And I'll speak on some of the success we had with immigration. And the approach we had with them is we got in contact with one of their coordinators, who the new entrants into the country have specific skills that we're looking for. So what they did is they flushed through resumes to identify recruits for drywall finishing and commercial painting that may suit what we're doing in the trade. And from there, we provided safety training to the individuals to get them work ready. And part of that process, we said, we don't want this connection to go away. So why don't we sign an exclusive agreement with our training department? So all 4 groups did that. We've had really good success with immigration. And on top of getting the resume, we knew we had a good candidate coming to take skills training. And then we took it one step further, and we had contractor involvement in conjunction with training for drywall finishing and commercial painting. So we had them do a 3 to 5 day course on drywall taping, commercial painting. And during the course, we had our signatories right in identifying those recruits that would be successful into the field. Because what we didn't want to do is start off on the wrong foot, have them take training and then go off doing something else discouraged. So we wanted to ensure we had, we offered the opportunity to become members and go out into the field. It worked really, really well. We've had huge success in keeping the recruits on board. And on top of that, during that process, we became aware of government incentives to hire the individuals into the field. And it was a slight benefit financially to give them a shot or a chance into the field. And it was probably one of the best things we did is we reached out, myself and the director of training, Walter McDonald, and we had some really good conversations with these 4 groups. We're keeping up with the others. Immigration's really on board. So when, even to this point, when they identify someone that does our trade, they contact us to see if we can place them, meaning we would train them and then have them in and do an interview and send them out. So as a part of marketing, it was huge success. And then we have the individuals in the field. The only real barrier we had was language barrier. So they had to meet a certain classification before they came on. And those that are almost there, they're providing upgrading in English and things like that to get them out in the field, because we don't want to lose them. But that's pretty much what we did. And it eased some of the anxiety that we had trying to find recruits when signatories are asking. So it's going to create a really good unity. There's a very strong family presence with immigration. So it's something we're gaining real good traction now, and it's something I recommend everyone reach out to, the Office of Immigration in their area and just say hello and ask how we can work together. So it was good.
Yeah, thanks so much. So we've got a few minutes left in this section. I just want to kind of open up for anybody. From any of the groups, did anybody see something where also they had a thought of, like what will be a challenge of doing something similar in your jurisdiction, whether that's you're not sure who the agency or the partner would be, or you think there's some other kind of obstacle. Just going to start to think about that, because then in the final section we'll start to think about our next steps and being realistic about what the hurdles we're going to have to overcome are. Is important to actually getting work done. So anybody from any of the groups have a thing that they saw that they'd like to replicate, but they're see a challenge or an obstacle in the way?
I do.
Go for it.
So I would love to replicate the pre-apprenticeship programs that they have in the high schools, and to have those grade 10, grade 11, grade 12 students actually placed on job sites for credit to go towards their if they have that interest, right? Because there's a couple areas in Ontario that they have tried it, and it's been really successful. And the contractors, I've talked to the contractors about it, and they've brought in some great people, and they love the career. The contractors have excellent employees. It's a win-win situation. They get their grade 12 diploma as they go. It's great. The challenge is at times, depending on the area that you're in, if there is unemployment, the members are not open to, even looking at that option. Even at times, if there isn't unemployment and there's full employment, they're still not open to that option, and it becomes political. which I think is unfortunate at times because, and I have a bit of a story to go into from Gus's and Rick's comments, but we can do that later. But it's unfortunate when we run into roadblocks like that, that we have to work around because we have to do it. I mean, you looked at the data, you looked at the age of our membership, there's no doubt about it. We have to diversify, we have to recruit new members to this union. The other thing in certain areas is the collective agreement itself, right? That may not allow for things like that to happen. But, yeah, there's been roadblocks. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because what Martha just dropped into the chat, I think, Simon, I think it's something I maybe have heard you say before, but also is one of the things that even folks who, even if members who are resistant to having, especially when there's, you know, a lot of folks riding the bench or whatever, like who are resistant, it's just like, this is going to keep paying the pension, right? Like getting the 17, 18, 19-year-old in who's going to be paying into the pension fund for the next 30 years is how the 50-year-old member knows that the pension fund is going to be in good shape when they retire.
Do we have time for a 3-minute story?
Yeah, I think so. I think then we'll use that to end us, and we'll go into the break straight from that, if that's all right.
Sure, I'll make it quick. But when I listened to Gus and Rick both talking about the members that we deal with, and one of the comments that Rick made was, at times, some of our membership is not, you know, completely open to diversity. And it's always been one way. They want to keep it that way. But when you look at the age of our membership and you look at the membership of the IUPAT itself, it hasn't been growing in leaps and bounds over the years that I've been here, unfortunately. But my story is I travel across Canada, and when I'm traveling, I like to go to members' meetings whenever possible. And I was at a members' meeting, and I was sitting at the back of the room, and I was listening to the discussion, and there was 3 main topics of discussion coming from the members. And I'll tell you that it was 90% of that room was over the age 55. And it was a good turnout for this meeting, but the 3 topics of conversation was asking the representatives, where's the recruitment coming from? Where's the next generation of workers, right? And then they had a whole lot of questions about pension, and why can't we retire at a certain age? Why can't we retire at 60 like the whoever else, and so on. And then there was a nice story about a gentleman in the crowd that was retiring, and everybody was happy for him. And at the end of all this discussion, they introduced me and asked me if I had any comments. And it was perfect because it was like they teed it up for me to hit it out of the park. And I brought up the 3 topics of conversation that they were talking about. And this is what this program is all about, is educating people to the reality of the situation that we're looking at in recruitment. And I brought up those 3 topics of conversation, and I said, you know, you talked about the next generation of workers. Well, the next generation of workers are going to come from a whole lot different, you know, all sorts of different areas that traditionally they haven't come from. And we talked about women in trades and how it's terrible that, you know, we talk about 6% in the trades. It's nowhere near that across Canada. If it's 4%, I'd be really, really surprised. And I talked about the pensions, and then I said to the gentleman that's going to retire, you know, and congratulations to you. I'm so very happy that you're retiring and you're getting the opportunity to enjoy the IUPAT pension. That's fantastic. But here's the thing: if we don't do a better job of recruitment, and we don't bring new young blood into the union, and then on top of that, give them the support and you know, and share our knowledge and expertise with them, well, your pension is only as good as the statement that's mailed out to you on a yearly basis, because you need that you know, that base of members to continue to grow, to keep everything strong. So I wanted to mention that, and when you guys are going along with all of this training, I'm taking tidbits out of it and thinking it'd be great just to share with even the next generation of workers that are coming in, so that they have this knowledge, that they really understand why it's so important that we continue to grow and have that power. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Simon. So with that, let's head into our break before our final section. We'll go until half past, so a little over 10 minutes. And again, it's just gonna be the same Zoom link and everything. So if you want to jump off and jump back on, or if you want to just, turn your camera and mic off and be back.
Just to have folks back on. We are doing it, y'all. We're just going through this training, powering through it, doing it. Different time, different across borders. We're doing across different time zones. Powerful stuff. Oh man, this tea smells so good.
I've been generally amazed. If you had told me, not just before COVID, but like in July, that people would be able and willing to spend most of an afternoon on Zoom ever, I would be like, nah, that's not true. But folks made that transition at some point, kind of the second half of last year. It seemed like people started to get pretty comfortable actually being able to, figure out how to make it work, what kind of breaks we need and all that. So, and I'm really glad, because it's great to be able to do this.
Yes. Yeah, I appreciated the breaks. Cool. So we can, I don't know if Aaron's gonna share screen.
Make sure Aaron's back on. Yeah, let me look. Let's give it 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah, I think waiting for Aaron to get back on, but also I am betting based off of who isn't on camera that some folks are not yet back from break. It's the usual kind of tell.
Yeah. Give a few more minutes. And the self-assessment form, are we just gonna drop that in the chat?
Yeah, I'll put those things in the chat. I think they went out with the email yesterday, I guess, too, but I'll put them in the chat as well.
Cool.
Aaron, I think once you're ready to go, I think we'll be ready to get started. Yeah, no worries on the mic issues. Kind of appreciate you sticking it out and participating as well as the tech lets you.
Joe, can you chat the PowerPoint 3?
Oh yeah, 1 second. It's going to take Zoom a second to upload that. There we go. I'll refer to them a little later, but I'll go ahead and grab these worksheets now. Actually, yeah, we'll get to those when we get to them. I think Nicole has them. All right. 2 down, 1 to go. Welcome back, everyone. So this final section, man, if you could go ahead and start the screen share when you're ready. But so this third section is kind of, we did, just the arc of this is right. We start with the individual and the need. Spent the second section talking about the the best approaches overall, and the third section is really like looking forward, right? Looking at how to plan for success. I know just because of both some of what people have talked about and the district councils that people come from here, that like, you all today like kind of represent some of the district councils that are already doing pretty well, often in a lot of areas. But this still applies not just for building on that success, but also thinking about like, if you do well in one area, but there's another one that you want to strengthen, the same kind of rules and lessons apply as it would if you were in a district council where you feel like you might be starting from scratch on something. So yeah, with that, there's a couple of things that when we were talking to folks and planning this out, it seemed like kind of the ingredients for success, because there's, we saw even just from the case studies, there's a bunch of different things that you can do that might be effective, but like starting with the ones that you think are most likely to really be able to move and move, not tomorrow, but within a year or two, within a clear kind of time frame, usually have a couple of ingredients that kind of lead to that kind of success. One is just that like you do something related like in some other area, like maybe you have a tradeswoman committee or an active, you have a lot of members who are active in the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists, or I can't never remember exactly what LACLA stands for, but one of the AFL constituency groups that are involved and active, but they don't do anything about recruitment. So like that's the thing, like, okay, we already do this in one place, like we just need to get these folks involved in recruitment, like we already have something to build off of. Or if you're in a district council that's heavily involved in the community in one way or another, but again, maybe it doesn't tie it to recruitment. Maybe there are a number of building trades in the world that do a really good job of cutting a check to excellent organizations and hanging a banner on the wall at the annual dinner, but that may not be that may not be where you should stop. Maybe keep going. Oh, thank you, Crystal. Yeah, LACLA's Labor Council for Latin American Advancement. I always start with like, I always try to put the Latin or Latino in the wrong place and then can never figure out what the rest of the acronym is. Another sort of example of a place where your district council might be, kind of have a good ingredient for success is like, if you do have good collaboration between the training side and the hall and some things, but you haven't thought about it in particular for recruitment and retention. Another thing that tends to come up a lot as a kind of the ingredient to be successful in the future is if you already have a good model or a possible partner, right? Like some other building trades affiliate, has a great tradeswomen's committee or has been making progress, and you can like collaborate with them and figure out what's been working for them. They've already figured out, what some of the challenges of, say, working with the public high schools in your area are. You can no need to reinvent the wheel. One wheel is plenty. Just lets you know that you can work with them to figure out some things that you can just copy, steal, solidarity, share. Whatever term you want to call it. Or maybe your organizers on the political side, have worked closely with community groups but haven't connected it to recruitment, but they already know who kind of the possible partners might be. And last but like definitely not least, sometimes you do something perfectly well when you have the time, and you have the time once or twice a year. Or there's a couple of proactive folks on staff who have, kind of taken it on themselves, but they don't actually have a structure for it, or there isn't a lot of support for them. I feel like that obviously that comes up for recruitment and retention, but it comes up for everything, right? Where, there's not enough hours in the day, or otherwise there's a lot of will and maybe some good work has happened, but it's been hard to really like make it consistent and get the support it needs. So those are things that just in general are gonna, if you've got these types of elements in place, like there's a good chance that you can actually make a lot of progress on improving in some part of recruitment and retention. And really a shorter time frame than you might think. It's recruitment and retention is a long-term thing, but getting started can happen pretty quick. So Aaron, can you go to the next slide, and then Nicole, if you could drop the worksheet that is the one labeled self-assessment into the chat. This also went out by email yesterday, so folks probably have it in their email, but just in the chat might be a little more immediate. So we put this together of just a little, a chance for folks to for yourself or for your own district council, to think about what is currently kind of where your district council is at. And we put these out in, kind of following the frame of those best approaches that we went from, you talked about in the second section, so that people would have a, kind of a framework to go off of. Just spend maybe, 5 or 6 minutes, if that, to just like do it yourself, and then we can just have folks volunteer some of the, what you saw when you were thinking about it for your own district council, of just how well do we do on each of these things, sort of as things currently stand. This is a, also this is a no shame thing, right? So like both today and as keep using this training going forward, like it's better to say, yeah, I don't think we do this at all, and start from where you're at, because we all have to start somewhere. So if you feel like your district council doesn't do something well at all, that's okay. That's where you're at. We'll go from there. We'll give it about 3 or 4 minutes. So just, you got a few minutes to look through this. We don't have to do you don't have to do it super thoroughly at the moment, but just to start, get the gears turning. However well your district is currently doing, where you feel like you've got good ingredients to improve on that area. Is one where I don't know if I can call on people, but I might try.
Oh no, Mike, you came off mute, so I think it's you, man.
Well, I was thinking, in order to have the right ingredients, you got to have different looking people in positions where they can help people of color or gender or whatever it is, like you said earlier, it was pale, male, and stale. And to be honest, I heard that before, and in some areas, it's still kind of like that. But we need more people of color in leader positions to be able to help out.
So Mike, what I'm thinking about, I appreciate you sharing that. When I think about kind of both what the opportunities, but also what the challenges are, do you feel like you've got folks around the district who might be middle-aged white guys who want to have a more diverse and like incoming recruits, but they're not sure if they're the right people, or they don't know where to start, or is it oh, it's Mike's job, it's getting dumped on you? Like where are you at in the kind of the, is all of the leadership going to you by default, I guess?
Well, not necessarily, but our district council has gotten better with that. I mean, we still got a long way to go, but just like the rep that we have now in 58, Wendell Harris, is he's the only black rep and the first one we had, really. So, and a lot of times, poor Wendell, he gets it bad on both sides, because our community say he's not doing nothing, and he try to help everybody, and then they try to give him every person of color, and but we're working at it. It's getting a little better.
Yeah, the taking it from all sides sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard that one before. So what I want to lift up though is that, because if you've got thinking about kind of these areas in particular, like you've got a couple of folks who are invested, but it tends to be falling to like the black staff, the black, whether it's rep or I know you said you're on the training side. I don't remember your title, but if it's falling to you, then thinking about like the what does it look like to share the work? Like what does it look like to maybe get members, apprentices, so it's not always falling on you, which will both help you spread out some of the just some of the stress and some of the effort, but also means that like you don't want to wait for a whole generation of guys to retire and a whole new generation of guys to be on the exec board in elected positions, partly because we don't have that kind of time, but also like you shouldn't have to wait for that. Like you've got members right now who you could be thinking about, the places where they could get lifted up as people who go to job fairs, go to career days, stuff like that, in order to kind of spread that out so it's not always the Mike and Wendell show. Other folks had any areas where they were looking at where they thought there might be, either might have the ingredients for success to improve on an area, or a place where they're not sure, they're struggling a bit?
I believe, and I'm going back to my time. I've seen an improvement over the years, okay, compared to when I came in 40 years ago. We're starting to be more diverse, especially the IUPAT. In fact, my daughter mentioned that to me the other day. She'd done something, and she's an architect. She does something. She's like, IUPAT is like leaps and bounds ahead of the other trades when it comes to diversity, and we really are. It's there. It's not there yet. It's not. Trust me. And it's going to take some generations. It only took 130 years to get to here, so it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. But it is moving in the right direction. I really believe that. Just the leadership of Mr. Rick Main is moving in the right direction with that. I truly believe that. And I've just seen a great. I've seen a change in, the time I've been just around the Baltimore area. Baltimore's done great. I mean, district council, Brian Cordian, he has really, really moved that apprenticeship as far as diversity and knowing what needed to be done and bring it in, like Alice was talking about earlier. He's moved to another position. He's now a BMST, but he's got some good people underneath him. He really does. And he's still keeping an eye on it. He is making sure it still gets done. So, but here and there, you're going to have that. You know what I mean? I mean, where I live right now, still, it's the union's not as heavily used to be. I think somebody said 6. Simon, you said 6%, but I think only 3% of us, or less than 3%, actually of the private industry has a pension, which is mostly the trade. So that tells you something there. You know what I mean? As far as the defined pension plan, I think it's less than 3% in the country right now. So that tells you our diverse of, you know, what we have. We're an uphill battle, but it can be done. It really can.
Yeah, appreciate that. So let me just say, so we're going to go through some of the resources that we've either that we've put together as part of this training or that already exist within IUPAT. And I'm going to lead on this. I'm going to try to get through it, touch on some of the stuff fairly briefly, because we're going to get all these materials out afterwards, which also, by the way, is going to include all the slideshows and stuff like that. So, you know, if you are trying to remember something, or you, if you're like me and you never learned how to take notes because you were sitting in the back of class and you were not a note taker, that's just how I got through. You know, don't worry, this will all get back out to you. You don't have to rely on your memory. But yeah, if Aaron, you could go ahead and share the slideshow again, just up to I think it's the just number 4, yeah, slide 4 for the resources. Yes, right. Or you're just all in and not a note taker. Yeah, just great. Thank you. Yeah, so there's a couple of resources that some of which already existed and some of which Job with Justice put together with IUPAT and FTI when we were designing this. So first is the Ambassador's Toolkit. Aaron also put a PDF of that in the chat, and that's the biggest and sort of most comprehensive of these, but also wanted to mention a couple of these others as well. Go next slide, please, Aaron. So the Ambassador's Toolkit is it's designed for you to support your members to be ambassadors for the trades. It's pretty I think it's about 10, 12 pages. And we've also got a couple of other like sample brochures and stuff like that along with it. Purposes. So, you know, first and foremost is just, you know, you always want to be supporting our fellow members whenever we're asking them to do something new. You know, that would be true if they were a 3rd-year apprentice and you were asking them to, you know, take on a new skill. It's true if they're, you know, been a journey person for 5 years and you're asking them to help with recruitment for their first time. That's what we do. We support our people to make sure that they've got the tools to succeed. And, you know, not everything in it's going to necessarily be relevant for your district council in particular. But we wanted to do some, like, putting everything in a central place, especially, you know, some of the research of just who are the organizations you might want to partner with, that kind of thing, so that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel and you're not trying to start from scratch wherever you are. There's also some stuff in here that's got some templates for like brochures or, you know, the script that you might hand to somebody who's going to go do a job fair or something along those lines, or some other recruitment event that you'll have to edit. You have to, you know, at the very least put in your own district council information and, you know, contact information and stuff like that. But just trying to make sure that, you know, just at a practical level, save you some work. Go to the next slide, please, Aaron. So I'm probably going to miss some of this, and Aaron, I'm going to ask you if you notice that I missed something important, please just chime in, because Aaron also did most of the work on actually putting this together, which it's great. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh wow, I thought we were going to do like a nice little toolkit, but this is great. There's a lot in here. So there's an organization's resource sheet that includes stuff like, if you're trying to reach out to particular groups, here are the types of groups that you might want to reach out to, and some contact information depending on them. There's, like for member leaders, recruitment brochure about like how to recruit people into, helping out with how to get our members to help out with recruitment. Outreach brochures that are, tailored, like I think there's either 2 or 3 of them in here that are like tailored. So like there's one that's includes some of the stuff that we know from talking to people is most effective when reaching out to women to join the trade. So like a brochure that's a little different from a generic one. Scripts for members who might be, getting sent somewhere to do a recruitment thing. Just a simple checklist of, if you're going to be going to do a job fair, a career day, whatever a workforce development event, whatever it is, where you might be doing recruitment, just a checklist of making sure you've got stuff. And then a little bit on social media recruitment, which is we'll get to it a little bit more. It's varied a bit from one place to another. I think one of the case studies, I can't remember if it's in there. I think it was the Kansas City district. Had some really specific insights on using.
It was Kansas City.
Yeah, it was KC.
That was
yeah,
using the geofencing through Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of like, really nuts and bolts of what does and doesn't work for social media. And I should also say, in general, the goal is for the toolkit to be a living document that, I don't know what IUPAT's kind of internal file sharing stuff is, but that it'll be something that gets updated, that, as you all and other folks around IUPAT learn more, that, that gets fed back into here, and, updates with new information, a better script, whatever, just so that, can learn from experience. Aaron, is there anything else on sort of the overview of the toolkit that you'd want to add? Any points I missed?
Well, we'd love feedback on it. If you see anything, when you get a chance to take a look at it, and just to note on social media, and I don't know if we can say this enough, it's not worth spending a ton of money on it. So please do look at this if you are considering hiring a contractor or buying a lot of ads. Talk to some of your brothers and sisters in the union that have been using it. There's ways to use it really strategically, but you don't want to overinvest. Just good old knocking on doors, meeting people, recruiting through, person to person, knowing the right organizations. That really is what seems to be working.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so moving to the next slide, Aaron.
Can I?
Oh yeah, go for it, Scott.
Okay, so it's Scott. So I was just wondering, is there like YouTube clips of like each aspect of the trade, or like a basic orientation for someone that would want to join, possibly, that we could lead them to, or is that part of that, or no?
We don't have that, but is that something that you all have?
Can I take that? So Alice and I, along with Jobs with Justice, and they've been coming up with these pieces for us. The idea, Scott, is to house all the recruitment needs in one area. Like, for example, the IUPAT hub, and it'll be Gavin, our marketing person, that decides exactly where that's going to be. And what we want to be there is everything a district council needs for recruitment. So if there's a call for a career fair, or there's a last minute call for a high school visit, or whatever it might be, some district councils are equipped to take care of that in a hurry, right? They could do it in no time, no problem. Other district councils don't have the staff or the means to get that done. So we want them to be able to go to one stop for recruitment videos, the scripts, like Joe was talking about, PowerPoints, handouts. There's also trinkets that you can take for career fairs, stuff like that, all in one spot, so that it's easily downloaded and sent to the district council, and away you go. But you could use that. We want to make it easy so that when Joe was talking about an ambassador for the union, it could be that apprentice that just loves what they're doing and feels comfortable talking in a crowd, or whatever it might be. And when you're recruiting young people, they'd love to hear their story and experience, right? the first few years of being in the trade. So you'd be able to send those people out, and the script is easy because it's their story, and they could have a PowerPoint to go along with it.
Yeah, and great question, Scott, because I think that is something we heard a lot from a lot of different, I mean, people have said it just this afternoon too, but that, like, you know, if it doesn't matter who somebody is, if a 19-year-old doesn't know what a glazier does, then, like, you know, it's hard to start from there. So, like, having, yeah, some of the basics of, like, what does the trade actually do? Like, why is this work interesting? So I want to show, like, this next couple of slides are just sort of a glimpse of, like, what's in this overall toolkit. This isn't all of the material, and but just to give you a sense of what it looks like. So this the partner organization outreach sheet just does it sort of by area. So, like, you know, if you're thinking about particularly trying to recruit more women, you know, who are some of the organizations that you might work with? You know, what does that look like? You know, veterans, which obviously, like, veterans cover a wide range of, you know, you know, race and gender backgrounds, but often you know, make successful transitions into the trades. And often, like, you know, women and people of color who are veterans are likely to make good trades folks because many of the things that, like, you have to do to be successful in the military, you know, get up early, do your work, like, well, and you know, in a regimented way. Understand that, like, you're going to start off with the grunt work for a while before you get to do the more interesting things, and that is what it works like. A lot of that stuff like serves people well in coming into the trades. So next slide, Aaron. Thank you. Similarly, like, the support programs resource sheet, you know, is much bigger than this, but includes thinking about, like, what is the type of barriers that people often have, and then, like, what types of programs might exist that could help them out with that barrier. You know, so, like, lack of access to childcare, lack of vehicle ownership. I can't remember if we've got one on language barriers, but, like, some of the stuff that came up regularly as, you know, this is a great group of people we think could make great members of the trade, but they have some barrier that isn't entirely, you know, isn't a thing that we can just fix, you know, necessarily through what we do, but knowing that there is a way to help them overcome those barriers is going to, you know, make it easier to get them into the trades. Next slide. So there's a couple of different brochures that are, I can't remember if they're in the same file as the toolkit or if they're separate files, but we'll get them out afterwards either way. That are, you know, one is sort of like for our already members to talk about, you know, becoming an ambassador, why you might want to help, you know, go recruit other people into the membership, you know, because our members are the best, you know, evangelists for the trades, especially, you know, people who, you know, share some identity with the people that you're trying to recruit, whether that's race or gender, you know, what part of town they grew up in, you know, what languages they speak, that all that. And so we've got, you know, one sort of sample brochure in there that about getting some of our members to volunteer to do this, which, you know, is partly useful for the resource itself, but it's partly useful because, as with a lot of things, you know, it shows that you're putting your money where your mouth is, right? If your member knows that they're going to have some backup, that you're not just asking them to do something because, you know, you're trying to get them to pitch in a little more, but you're asking them to do something because you really care about it. Like, having the materials helps just demonstrate that. People just see it and say, oh, they're serious about this. Like, they really want this to work. They're more likely to say yes. And then there's two outreach to potential apprentices brochures. One is the general one, lists out, you know, concretely, these are the trades, you know, talks about some of the benefits, you know, the, like, you could have it, you can get trained without debt, get paid while you're learning your trade, and also, you know, usually includes, you know, something like, depending on, you know, I don't remember which pictures we have in there. Like, if you have pictures from your own district councils, folks would work well. And trying to make sure that even just like the way that you're showing the trade includes a diverse group of members who are working. So the people who see it just literally physically like see themselves, not a metaphor, literally see people who look like them doing the trade. And the women's brochure is pretty similar, but includes a couple of things that we heard, particularly from one of our sisters in Colorado, who's done a lot of work recruiting women into the trades, of some of the aspects of a career in the trades that has been most appealing to women when they've been recruiting. So puts a lot of emphasis on, you know, the benefits, puts a lot of emphasis on it being like a lifetime career. And also, you know, you should mention, especially if you know, mention if you have one or if it's a possibility that like there is a tradeswomen committee either within your local or it may be, you know, across the building trades. The sister who helped us put this together and gave us some advice is in Denver, where the Job with Justice chapter there runs a committee that's a tradeswomen's committee across all the building and construction trades. So just even mentioning that in the brochure, even if that woman who's considering joining up may not actually join the committee, but just seeing in the brochure, again, they're like, oh, there's a place for me in this union. Like this union cares about people like me enough to like have a committee for folks like me. You know, it really helps to, again, to sort of putting the money where your mouth is thing. You know, there's a big difference between just saying we want more women and people of color and saying here's what we're doing about it, because it shows that you're serious. It doesn't have to be perfect and like fantastic off the bat. You know, people recognize effort when they see it. So then next slide real quick, Aaron. I'm not going to cover this whole thing, but just so we know it's in here. There is an outreach script for members, you know, that has some of the key points so that, you know, you can equip a member who's doing a recruitment event with what some of the key points are. You know, what the opportunities are, that you know, you're getting paid to be an apprentice, just so that people have like a really clear sense of like what kinds of stuff they should be raising. Also, just one thing that like I feel like we I think it was Rick maybe mentioned it earlier, but that is worth emphasizing is like, you know, to not frame it. I mean, our society often like frames the trades as like, well, if you can't cut it in college, here's your backup option, and like that's both not true, and it's just like it's not a helpful way to like think about it when you're doing recruitment. I can't remember who it was when we were doing interviews with training directors and stuff, but somebody said, you know, I never, you know, he was talking about doing recruitment and he was like, I never say at like a high school, college, or high school job fair, like maybe college isn't right for you or it's not what you want to do. I say like, look, if you can't imagine sitting behind a desk all day, maybe you should come into the trades. Like if sitting behind a desk all day sounds like not where you want to go with your life, maybe this is the spot for you. And like that works better because it's a positive thing. It's a like, where can I see myself, instead of you know, making it seem like the trades are you know, for folks who can't hack it at the number one option. Next slide real quick. And then we just have in here also in this toolkit just the checklist for recruitment, so that you just got the like, do we have everything? And it also helps with, you know, being able to equip other people, because if they know there's a thing that they can just go down the list, it means that you know, they don't have to memorize it. They don't have to feel like they're the experts. They can just, you know, have the, here's the thing. I know what I'm looking for. I know where to find it. Which, you know, if your union hall's basement where you store all the stuff looks like everybody else's union hall's basement where they store the stuff, you may need to like, you know, do a little cleaning, get it all in one place. You know, maybe your union halls are nicer than the ones that I've worked out of, but my experience is it's a little messy. You may need to get this checklist all in one place and all of the things in one of the 12 shelves full of stuff off in the back room of the basement where the lights don't work very well. Maybe that's just SEIU Local 1 in Missouri, but in St. Louis, but I think it's everywhere. Next slide, please, Aaron. Thank you. Yes, so social media. So briefly, yeah, especially like broad-based ads on Facebook don't really work. Broad-based ads in general are spending, but some like targeted ads that do, you know, especially geography, that was the Kansas City District Council's experience is like, if they know there's going to be like a project in a specific area, like doing very targeted, like Facebook lets you target by geography. So they could spend like a really pretty small amount of money and just only target people who are coming to Facebook from that area, which got them a lot more people interested. You know, Instagram is both more visual and more likely to have younger folks on it. And it's not necessarily a great way, like, you don't necessarily get a lot of like people coming into the trade from it, but it is a good way to like show like what the work is and what it's like. The Tradeswomen's Committee in Colorado uses it a lot, or has used it a lot, because it also, you know, just does the visibility of like women who are in that tradeswoman group post pictures of themselves on the job site and like send it in, and so people can actually just have a like, oh, this is the job, this is what the work looks like, here's, you know, here's someone actually doing it. Because it is visual, like it's not a way that you're going to get a ton of information out about all the details of how apprenticeship works or anything like that, but it does do a fair amount for kind of visibility. And then, yeah, we will, you know, as I mentioned, like, you know, the goal is to have a sort of one-stop shop for what people need. So in terms of videos and stuff like that, you know, I think that's going to end up being the place to send folks. And as with the other stuff, like it's not, you know, spending a lot of money on a slick video is not probably going to be worth it. Like you'd rather have like a short, authentic video of somebody talking about their own experience in the trade than have something glossy that like a media consultant put together, because it's going to work at least as well, and it's going to cost a tiny fraction of the amount of money. So I think that's basically what's in the toolkit. I know I ran through that pretty quick, but like I said, it's meant to be a living document. I want to give folks a sense of what's in it, but you should spend some time with it and really dig in. So first up, let me check on how I'm doing on time. Yeah, we're doing pretty good on time. So either Aaron, is there anything from the toolkit that I missed, or also if folks have questions about any of it? Like I said, Aaron's got the most kind of in-depth knowledge about what's in it and where to find it. And so on.
Well, I just hope that you know, the brochures are really meant for you to make. They could be very small, minor changes, and then start adopting them and print them out. Have your local, regional contact information on there. It shouldn't be a lot of work, and so that should be set up for you soon. But yeah, we hope you make use of this, and when it's in a place to be able to kind of be a living resource, I think it'd be great for groups to continue to add more resources as they come across them. This is just the beginning. We wanted to kind of get you all started in thinking about groups to contact, resources to help address some of the barriers, but you all, you know, will be learning more and adding more. It'd be great for you all to be able to share that amongst yourselves.
Do folks have any particular questions about stuff in the toolkit before we move on?
Will you guys be sending all this stuff via email to us?
Yeah, certainly via email. And then I don't know if there's going to be a place that sort of, I think there will eventually be a place that lives within IUPAT so that people can always get to it, but it'll definitely be like the follow-up email to everyone.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So and then one of the things that I wanted to point out for kind of existing resources, well, a couple. One, and actually, Simon, I might need you to back me up on this because I don't remember exactly where it is at, but I know that IUPAT has the Mentorship Matters internal program, and my recollection is that was going to really get rolling. Like the goal was to get that really rolling in the past like year or two, but I also don't know if that like got thrown off pace by COVID or anything.
It was thrown off base by COVID, but it's now, we actually just delivered a trainer in December, Alice, yeah, December. And I think there was 12 district councils that were on that training. And it's starting to take off in different areas. So that's good, but it was held up by COVID they didn't have the ability to train via Zoom until just recently. So now we have it going and we can continue training as needed. We'll probably put that on, I'm guessing, try and put it on 3 or 4 times a year.
And how should folks access that program? Is it a matter of emailing? Like, I don't know what your internal communications are.
They all know the process for requesting attendance in a course. Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, and that is among, like, you know, recruitment obviously is about getting people in the door, and mentorship though is a pretty key part of retention, or a really successful thing in general. And while yes, it is great to like match folks up across, you know, with thinking about race and gender, you know, if someone's a good mentor in the trade, they're a good mentor in the trade. It's okay if it's a white guy mentoring a black woman. The investment in the apprentice of, oh, this trade, like this union cares enough about me to like match me up with somebody and have somebody who helps you, you know, navigate the job site and know what to expect and all of that. Like that counts for a lot to people. And yes, where you've got experienced journey folks who are women and people of color, they'd be great mentors. But also, like, don't let that stop you. If like your current membership is pretty heavily white guys, don't feel like, oh, I guess we can't do any mentorship. Like, it's still a really valuable program. It still really just demonstrates to people that they matter to the union, that you're willing to go to the effort. And it is just that thing of, you know, I think Mike, you had a good example of the like, no out brushes when they're first an apprentice. Like nobody's picking on you. This is what it is. And like just being able to hear that is helpful. And the program also includes, training the mentors on how to be good mentors, as well as thinking about what the skills are that apprentices need in order to get the most out of having mentorship on the job site. And then also we'll have just some of the basics in the follow-up materials. But there is a little bit of a resources on not just both existing kind of women's committees and other groups like that, but also like, I'm not sure which body it is within IUPAT, but like IUPAT's, I think overall women's committee has a really straightforward step-by-step set of instructions for like how to set up a new women's committee. That's a thing that's often like can seem kind of overwhelming because your unions probably have a lot of committees and you're like, wow, one more, like when am I going to fit that in? Or we don't have very many women in membership. It seems daunting to ask, a relatively small number of people to commit to something. But it's also a thing that like you can collaborate with other building trades affiliates, like so that even if there are, 3 women from the painters and 1 from sheet metal and 2 from IBEW, like that starts to actually feel much more like a community and starts to be enough folks to actually be able to do some work together. And it doesn't have to be a huge undertaking right off the bat. Once they start building up momentum, like they will start doing stuff themselves. It doesn't have to be a thing where like it, requires it should get supported, but it doesn't necessarily require a ton of like staff time support in order to make those things really like start to get rolling. And your people, like once they start taking leadership, like you usually have to run to catch up to them, right? Like it's they'll take it and run with it. So some of that stuff is in the ambassadors toolkit, but also we've got the IUPAT's Women's Committee Core Action Initiative. That's what it is. Has that step-by-step for forming a new women's committee, and it's a pretty similar process if you're thinking about trying to have a people of color focused committee in one way or another. So I wanted to like share all that just to, because thinking about either doing something new or like even just improving on some of the work they're already doing, I know can be daunting. So I'll make clear that like we've got a lot of resources here. We've tried to do our best to make sure that there's as much stuff sort of out already to help people with as possible so that people have a chance to, people aren't like, starting from scratch entirely. So we've got just about, we go to half past, right? We got about 10, 12 minutes left. So Nick, Martha, could I pass it to you to just do a little bit of this, the final kind of brainstorming and planning, and I think in our agenda we have it as small groups, but there's enough people on this call. I feel like we don't have to do any breakouts or anything. We can just all stay here.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a doc that complements this section. It's the planning.
Yeah, I'll drop it in real quick.
The brainstorming and planning worksheet. And since we only have 10 minutes, it might just be helpful just to walk through it. And then we can, you all can fill it on in more thoroughly on your own time, just to kind of help just go deeper into the future on planning for yourselves in your respective organizations. You can take it back and go deeper with your teams to assess like how you can apply what we've discussed and the resources and the toolkit that you'll get shared with, like how can you be equipped to go back and empowered to do the work around transforming the the issue around retention, recruitment of women and people of color. So yeah, the worksheets just, if did it get thrown in the chat?
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah, so thinking through the approaches and some of the, the ways in which we can either develop or grow in, naming those approaches. If folks want to share, hopefully folks have it pulled up and you can just go follow along. But yeah, within your district council, who are the folks that you want to have on board, right? Like after you've ID'd where are the places you want to grow in, thinking through who are those champions that can lead the cause, given the outline around best practices of who are the folks to go to help lead this effort. Then there's who are the helpers? So who do you want on your team? To help collaborate and co-own the process on this project and in this effort, to help think through ideas and help collaborate those that you ID'd as those champions to really launch that initiative. Who are those in the community? Who are those partner organizations that you've maybe reached out to, you build relationships with, you have connections to, but how can you go deeper to build with them? Or maybe just those, if you haven't engaged them, who are they and how can you get to know them better? What are the ways that you can kind of build rapport, but also build familiarity about their issues and their causes and help to ID where there's alignment? And then sort of starting to the next piece is around prioritizing next steps and immediate moves into action. And so helping to, just kind of ID, like I said, those champions. And let's see. So this is the second phase, which is around the implementation. So you have the brainstorming initiative part, and then the second part is moving it into action. Does that sound right? Oh no, this is just the same form, but it's just sort of second type of priority,
second
issue
area.
priority. Yeah. So yeah, that's sort of the framing for how we're thinking around planning and next steps. Is there anyone who wants to share that you have oh, I want to do this with my DC, going back, the takeaway around what area of focus, whether it's mentorship, whether it's outreach, whether it's around building committees, where are the places where you all are really excited about that you think you can either grow from or start to develop further? Just if there's any thoughts before we wrap up.
I may as well go. It's Scott. So I did fill out this form, and I met what we want to do is maybe reach out to the high schools more, the trades. They're starting to get into more industrial arts, and maybe get out and do a presentation there. And when we do go, we're going to I believe we should identify a couple younger recruits, membership that are on board with us to tell their story. And what we do is we segment, someone that's involved in flooring, drywall taping, commercial painting, and glazing, and have them tell their story at the same time. I did write down some names here of younger recruits that are indentured apprentices that can tell how they've been moving through their journey. And on top of that, we have a good connection with the Nova Scotia Sector Council, who are a group that actually are involved with the O2 program, and the students from the high schools go for a trades exhibition with them. So maybe at the same time we have some younger recruits, we could also have some elderly recruits that are maybe on their way out that could tell their story as well. And that's an area where we can expand on. I believe there's a big opportunity there, and we're going to be able to spread our message and our word. So it's something I'm working on here.
Yes. Thank you, Scott. Those are all really great ideas and just next steps to move into action. And I wish we would have had more time to go deeper with y'all. And I was sitting with like a lot what Mike said, like the environment and the context and the reality and also the history, right, Rick, like where we've come from. And I think like thinking through those two things remind me of like, someone told me like the analogy of like looking at the field and the context as like soil, and like the soil that we are on is not always the most like ideal, and there's different ways to get that pH level shifted to grow. I like gardening, so there's different ways to shift that pH level to get it to where we have the right organic soil that we need to really grow. But we have to work with whatever context, whatever soil we have, and whatever tools we have to really amend and over time really see that shift in that soil to, for our fruit so you can bear fruit the next season, right? Or that they get better over time. And so I think it's really important to, like recognize where we stand, really have a context of where we are, but also have a vision and inspiration and motivation for really digging into that soil and really looking forward to what we will reap when we sow all that labor behind it, right? And so I really encourage y'all to like look at these documents, look at dig deep and come back to your teams and like really fill this forum out in a context of like really what you see as visionaries, as leaders, right? Y'all are leaders in this fight. And so like thinking through how we can go deeper, and we're here to support, right? Like you may not have a well thought out program for your district council, but this is the beginnings, right? So, we're here to continue fueling that flame.
And also just as we're getting to wrap up on a one piece of other practical stuff, I don't remember, I know there's a sort of a standard FDI, like, when you finish a course, this is a course eval kind of thing. I think we were talking about, Alice or Simon, correct me if I'm misremembering this, adding a question or two to it. So this is the first time we've done this, like we also appreciate some feedback on, which pieces were most helpful, and like, to be frank, like what, if we want to spend more time on one thing or less time on one thing, like let us know what it is, because it is hard to like, there's so much to cover, like we could spend 8 hours, but we don't have 8 hours. So like really honest feedback about like where we should focus will also help, I think, for continuing to sharpen this up so that we can get people what they need and also not lock them into their chair for an entire day, because that's not going to happen. And Alice or Simon, am I remembering that right? That's like part of the follow-up format?
Yeah, so we did not set this up as a course yet. And Simon and I, we have a plan to bring this group back together to have a discussion afterwards, post-class, and review the class, see where they see the value, what avenues will we use to disseminate this training, whether it becomes a class or whether it becomes a resource. So all of the participants, we won't include the JWJ people, but we're going to try to pull you together probably next week for a short time. We're not going to take too much of your time, but we'd like to get your feedback and kind of direction for where we can go with this.
I really appreciate that. We are also talking to some other trades unions. This is proprietary. You all own this training, but who might want something similar. So we really appreciate the feedback. If we're going to take this to other unions, you guys are the first. It's really, you're leading the way on a lot of this equity stuff. So kudos to FTI and IUPAT for that. But yeah, we would really appreciate honest, candid feedback on this.
Yeah, and I just want to say for myself, I really appreciate both folks' time and attention, and also, your willingness to jump in on, complicated discussions of a difficult topic on a dime with folks you haven't met before. So I really appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to seeing how this keeps evolving.
Well, thanks, Joe and Martha. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the presentation. I look forward to the next one. It was great. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
I don't know if I have to do entertain a motion to adjourn or anything, but I think the chair will now entertain a motion. Motion second pass. Great. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, all.
Thanks
Bye now.
everyone for your time and,
Thanks, everyone.
and presence.